Pat McAfee be getting into a whole lot of beats. Microphone made a video about it. I want to watch it. Actually, add some context if he doesn't add it to there, because I used to watch a lot of Pat McAfee. I think he's quite the interesting character. I think people are trying to come after the big dog, or is Pat McAfee just wilding?
Let me run through it. On January of 2025, Pat McAfee started beefing with the Indianapolis Colts. He went at his former team so hard that he literally said,
"I wish we could transfer portal the whole team. Jonathan Taylor, trade his out of town."
He suggested trading Jonathan Taylor, the same
Hey man, you know, sometimes when you have too many vitamins, Pat McAfee, right? When you have too many Bud Lights, it gets a little too much. You feel me? If you have takes like trade Jonathan Taylor, who, by the way, if you don't know, this is where I'm gonna add a little context, had one of the most historic seasons as a Wisconsin running back, by the way, and obviously playing at MVP levels.
Jonathan Taylor, who's now the front runner for Offensive Player of the Year. In February, when Canadian fans booed the American anthem at WWE Elimination Chamber, Pat McAfee called it a terrible country.
Sucks that it's in the terrible country of Canada that booed our national anthem.
In March, he
see, and this is where I'm gonna come to defend. He's being a wrestling, you know, announcer. Like, it is what it is. But he did come at Ken. He didn't like that. He ran it on his own show about that, and it was about the same thing. He about to say the same thing.
Got into it with the league over how he was treated at the combine. He would pull his show from the draft, and then eventually they would make up.
There's a narrative being built about me that isn't true. I should just address it. Now, was there a lack of respect? For sure. But the combine and the draft, two different events. Okay, combine, got approved to be there. That was going to be a big deal, lucky to be there. Then, a few days beforehand, some people at that middle level who have power wanted to flex the fact that they have power, I think. Created some problems. I'm going to have to sign off on this. I'm going to have to see this. You can't do this. You can't do that. This is what I'm saying, yada, yada. Hoops were made for us to jump through for no reason, because I think I'm younger than these people, so they think they can. Draft was the same thing. Just like where they wanted to put us allegedly, how it was going to go, what we were going to have to do, just like flexing power while also showcasing disdain for me and my show all at the same time, while we have a relationship with the actual league, I think. So it's an interesting time. We said we're not going to the draft, but it wasn't directly because of the insufficient respect from the combine, but it is a lack of it on a regular basis from one group of people just making life harder on everybody.
In May, he started beefing with John Mellencamp over how Pat was able to hype up the Pacers crowd. It was a civil war over who best represents Indiana.
We are going to be an agent of only good things, because that will make John Cougar Mellencamp happy. And he puts out this horrendous quote tweet. I respect and appreciate the fact that he said, you know what? I've made a pretty good living over the last few years, grandstanding higher than anybody else on everything. Suck it, buddy! Okay? I don't like you. I know your name, and I don't like you.
In June, he started beefing with Andrew Marchand and ESPN insiders by calling him a rat, and this wasn't the first time he did it. He also went at the dinosaurs at ESPN and made cryptic comments about Seth Markman, which is a NFL producer. In August, he would call out ESPN when WWE and ESPN announced their deal, which is something that should have been a celebration, but Pat used it to call out mid-level, powerless, bum suits at ESPN, who he assumed would muddy this somehow. And then in October, he would
look. If Pat McAfee is nothing, he is petty, right? Great punter, phenomenal show, a pioneer in the world of what's it called? Sports entertainment, right? You know, the golden standard when it comes to sports entertainment. But my goodness, he is petty as hell. I remember, I'm not sure if it's going to be in here, but he got into this beef with, I think it was either a Vikings or a Minnesota fan. And the beef was surrounded by no, it was a Colts fan. Hold up. That's what made it so crazy. A Colts fan like made some tweet about like, hey, you know, my, what's it called? My dad's going through a hard time. I think he was doing something, or maybe he passed XYZ. It was like a fundraiser. And then I think Tom Grossi or somebody retweeted it, or maybe Brett tweeted it. Some YouTuber tweeted it, and he went off on him. And he was like throwing all this shade and saying all this other stuff. And I think then there's another time they brought Tom Grossi, they brought Brett on and kind of bitched him a little bit. And if y'all know me, if y'all watch my main channel, I got beef with Brett Collerman now. But I mean, he's one of the more respected YouTube entertainers XYZ in this world. So just a lot of weird situations with him. And he be on Twitter, boy. He is an ex-gremlin. He sees everything you tweet about him, boy.
Start beefing with Ryan Day because he felt like Ryan Day was dodging interviews with him.
Getting Ryan Day on the show, that's crazy. I didn't know that guy would come on this show. Me, Ryan Day, we'll call it outs. Thank you so much for the opportunity to potentially talk to you. What's that?
Those are all nasty things.
That I don't like him?
Yeah.
It turned out to be a miscommunication, and the feud lasted less than 24 hours. And then came the big one, and I would say this is probably the main reason we're making this video. In October, he went on an Instagram rant at the GameDay producers. Here's exactly what Pat McAfee said. If you think about old white people and old ESPN people, those are really the people that hate me the most at this stage of my life. Now, granted, there's some other groups that certainly have threatened my life on a regular basis. I'd say they hate me too, but throughout the entirety, old whites and the old ESPN people over the last like 3 years have really hated me. That's who all the producers are of GameDay 2.
I'm sorry. There's just something, and I don't deny it. There's just something about, because Pat McAfee is like he's the sports show. Like, people don't even watch First Take anymore. Like, I think he has a lot more old white fans than he, I think, gives himself credit for. Now, a lot of people do think he's loud and XYZ and yada yada yada. But I just think he's like Eminem. That's what he is. Oh my God, he's like the 2020s Eminem, where he's like he's victimizing himself because some white people are giving him like a slight inconvenience. Like, that's very. Dog, you have the biggest show on ESPN. You demand the most crowds. You're on the most prestigious show, ESPN GameDay, and you're allowed to do WWE stuff. Yeah, but you complain this much. I don't know. Maybe that's interesting. Maybe if I complain more, it would be great. As much as, hey, some of this I'm gonna defend Pat McAfee. Other times it's like the old whites hate me. Dog, you're announcing next to one of the greatest coach in college football history, and I have to hear about this and that and how awful it. Dog, what are we talking about? How about ingratiate yourself? And it's so funny. I know I'm about to swerve off, but a certain quarterback that wears the number 12, I feel like it's kind of like that same thing where it's like, well, they make fun of the fans. Why not embrace them? Why not educate them? Why, as Pat McAfee, why don't you show, hey, we frat, we doing whatever, but we can also do this. I don't have to be a whining baby. Like, every generation older, the people older than me, the people older than you, they all think that generation before them, they some whiny, complaining babies that have it better. And Pat McAfee, you have the biggest show. You've uplifted some not so. I'm not gonna. Let's just say this: Pat McAfee's done phenomenal things, great things for sports, continues to do great things for sports. But when you let these weird little situations show, I think he doesn't understand how much that pushes against
that sink in
a
for
lot
a
of his
second.
fans.
He just
You
called
know
out
what I'm
the
saying?
people who produced the show that made him a national household name on social media for the whole world to see. The response from inside ESPN was immediate. One source said that this was totally unnecessary. Grow up and talk to these people to make it better. You are not a victim. Everyone is bending over backwards to put you in a good position, and these same people are incentivized for you to succeed. Another was more blunt and called him an entitled diva. A third source said he was juvenile, unprofessional, and bad for business. But here's the thing, and remember this part, these people are all anonymous. They're talking to reporters in the shadows because they can't say it publicly. Why? Because Pat McAfee is untouchable. Just before the holidays, McAfee dropped a bombshell. During the Texas A&M show, he hinted not once but twice that it might be the final kick of the season, maybe of the entire series. The kicking contest has become one of the top segments of GameDay. It's must-watch TV. It's basically the natural successor to Lee Corso's headgear pick. Pat's given away over $2 million of his own money, and now he's hinting that this might be over. One source told Front Office Sports that it would make absolutely no business sense. They had the Corso so thing for almost 4 decades. This is a similar deal. It's a main attraction for the show. So why would Mcafee do this? And here are the theories. Theory 1 is Pat is bored. Pat has typically been unpredictable. He's walked away from employers before. Maybe he wants to retire the bit before he gets stale. Or the second theory is ESPN is looking for a sponsor. They want to get a corporate partner to foot the bill and slap their brand all over it, which would make sense because I could understand if Pat doesn't want to give away his own money for the segment. And then the final theory, and this is the spicy one, is maybe he's keeping it in his back pocket for when he launches his own version of GameDay to compete with ESPN. Now, here's the thing that people need to understand. Pat McAfee isn't an ESPN employee. He's a licensee. Remember that. Licensed versus hired. ESPN doesn't produce his show. They license it from him. That's a crucial distinction. He has creative freedom that most ESPN talent could only dream of, and he's got protection from the very top. One source even said that right now, Pat's bulletproof because Burke, Jimmy, and Iger have his back. Pat holds all of the cards. So if you don't know who Burke Magnus is, he's the ESPN president of content, and he released a statement defending him, saying that Pat is a creative force. He's pushed hard to advance college game day, and his impact has been enormous. Since he joined ESPN, Game Day, as well as his own daily show, have experienced unprecedented success.
So I just, we're talking about, this is what I mean. You can't complain and cry about the old whites, and old whites that are some of the most powerful people in the world of sports and business are saying these things about you. Like, dog. I get there might be some inconveniences. I feel it, dog. And the inconveniences are on different levels, but maybe there's another way to fight the fight. Because, dog, I don't think it's the old way. Maybe that's all I'm saying. Maybe the energy is directed in the wrong way and depicted in the wrong way, because I don't see that. You feel me?
Then Magnus dropped this. Pat is also an innovator, and when you have someone who disrupts the status quo, it's not surprising when there's friction and disagreement as a result. Translation is,
yeah, Pat McAfee is worth the headache.
Now let me show you why some people at ESPN are genuinely frustrated, because it's not just about hurt feelings. In early 2025, Pat McAfee amplified a false rumor about an Ole Miss college student on national television. It wasn't true. The family considered legal action, and the woman was harassed and even swatted. It took him until July of 2025 where he would finally address it on air, saying that he was wildly regretful for the part that his show played in the Mary-Kate Cornett controversy. In November, as part of a Veterans Day celebration, Pat McAfee interviewed Donald Trump. And I guess every time you interview Donald Trump, there's going to be a polarized reaction. When critics came for him, his response was this.
I will like to say, for the immediate people that are going to be mad about that happening, as President of the United States, if we have the opportunity to talk to him, we're going to, and he is hilarious.
And we can't talk about Pat without bringing up Stephen A. Smith. In March of 2024, Pat told a story of an explosive phone call where he called Stephen A. Smith a mother on his show on ESPN's airwaves, describing a fight with ESPN's highest paid personality. These two are supposed to be on the same team, and Pat is out here airing their beef publicly. The Schefter situation is interesting too. Adam Schefter was apparently banned from the Pat McAfee show for months. When Andrew Marchand reported it, Pat called him a rat, then immediately booked Schefter. Because, well, of course he did. Here's something wild that came out recently. WWE president Nick Khan revealed that Pat sends "you're next" texts to ESPN executives who cross him. One executive tried to make amends after a disagreement, and Pat's response was "you're next." Bro's out here acting like he's Goldberg.
You're next,
and that's
buddy.
The environment inside of ESPN right now. A $17 million per year talent who texts executives like he's cutting wrestling promos. Here's what I think's really happening. Pat McAfee represents a fundamental shift in sports media. He came up through YouTube. He built his own thing. He has his own audience, and ESPN needs him more than he needs ESPN. College Game Day was struggling before he got there. Lee Corso was declining. Fox's Big Noon Kickoff was gaining ground. Pat came in and reversed all of that. The most watched season ever. So when he goes on Instagram and calls out old ESPN people, he's not worried about the consequences, because what are they gonna do? Fire the guy who's carrying their flagship college football show? This is the new reality of sports media. The talent has leverage, and the institutions are desperate, and Pat knows all of this because he's a pretty smart businessman.
Yeah, he is a big dog in this ass, and I don't want to watch too much of this. I kind of got carried away. I don't like watching full videos, but Pat McAfee, like I said, is just a trailblazer in the world of sports and entertainment. And I do think that leash is going to be very long if the numbers keep putting the way he's putting them on the board, keeps putting on the board. But you can't at one regard, as an independent dude who did it and is doing it in different ways, I've never done it. You know, Pat McAfee in that case, I have to feel for him because there's always going to be that administrative pushback because people don't, that is such a threat to the ecosystem that a lot of these bigger, systems set up, you know what I'm saying, the way they want to have it done. But in the same breath, it's like, but he is that, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, Pat McAfee is the big dog at this point. Like, I know he's not the biggest dog, but when it comes to power, leverage, and some of the front facing people who the average football fan, dog, Pat McAfee is way more locked in with those people than Stephen A. Smith is right now, and that's saying a lot. So, y'all let me know how you feel down in the comments. That'd be great. That'd be phenomenal. See you next time. Peace.